Good afternoon, Chuck. How are you on this post-snowstorm day?
Yeah, I'm good, Roberto. Thanks so much for having me. Look, I'm trapped inside anyway. It's freezing cold, so I'm happy to be in a warm living room talking to you.
Chuck, give us the cliff notes, who you are, what you do, and why you think you're the best person to represent. Give me the number, please.
Look, here's the cliff
No,
notes.
the congressional district. Remind me what the number is.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm running
It's
in the
CD
sixth district, New York sixth
CD
district. That's
six.
like the
Got it.
beating heart of immigrant Queens. You got everything from Woodside, Elmhurst, Corona, Regal Park, Forest Hills, downtown Flushing, chunks of Bayside, Fresh Meadows, Oakland Gardens. Um, and the Cliff Notes version of why I'm doing this is, look, I'm a Queens kid. My parents came to this country in the 80s. They worked as street vendors. They hustled. They worked their asses off. They eventually opened a small business in Jackson Heights. That business put food on the table for five of us. It put five of us through college. I grew up to become a U.S. diplomat under Obama. I later quit to protest Trump. That's my story. But guess what, Roberto? I bet that's close to your story too. That's the story of every single person in Queens, in this city. You come here, or your parents or your grandparents came here with nothing. You work hard, maybe you have some faith, and you build your family, you build your business, you build a community. And that's what built this entire city. And the reason I'm running is that story, our story, is under attack in like a very literal way. You know, every kid disappeared by ICE, every mom grabbed off a street, every dad grabbed out of the back of a kitchen or a Home Depot parking lot, man. That's one of our stories being erased before our eyes. And so I think we need people who are going to fight back. It's not about a letter or a tweet statement. It's about fighting back and fighting in every single way possible. Marching, mutual aid, voting no on this stupid DHS ICE budget that's supposed to increase their funding. We got to fight back in every single way available to us, and especially our leaders who have certain levers of power. And so that's why I'm running. You know, if our leaders were meeting this moment, I wouldn't be running for the seat.
Chuck, what was your most recent job? Like literally before you took a leave or you, I don't know what you did, but what
Yeah,
was your most recent?
so my most recent job, I worked at the New York City Economic Development Corporation. It's this city agency basically that does economic development. It manages the New York City's like property holdings across the entire five boroughs.
What did you do at EDC?
I was vice president for public affairs, so a lot of it was telling the story of our agency's work. Now that's a
For
story
Queens
of
or for citywide?
what's that?
Queens or citywide?
Citywide. So that goes for, you know, everything from what's going on in Willits Point. I'm not sure if you're paying attention. Not the
I am.
casino chunk, because I think that's
I
a
am.
horrible idea for
Housing,
Queens.
housing, housing. Yeah.
But yeah, the other side, that's going to be 100% affordable housing, 2,500 units. We're talking about two bedrooms that start at like 1,500 bucks a month. You know, so truly affordable for working people, um, alongside jobs and a new school and new streets and new sewage. So that's a great project that I worked on in terms of telling the story of that project. I was in public affairs. There's also other things, big and small, that the New York City Economic Development Corporation does. One great example is, look, there's all these public markets. You know, you got this mayor who spoke a lot about bringing the cost of groceries down, government run groceries.
Yeah.
Our agency was already doing that, and I think they'd be happy to expand it
Fresh,
in
yeah,
the
yeah. The
form of,
fresh program, I'm familiar with it. Fresh
yeah, fresh
program.
program. That's exactly right.
Well,
Yeah.
the more market, Arthur Avenue Market, Moore Street, Essex.
You know exactly what you're talking about. And those go back to, people don't know, that goes back to Mayor LaGuardia, who stood those up. And guess what? It was
Yeah.
very similar to what's happening today. Back then, when it was Mayor LaGuardia, there were tons of street peddlers, push cart vendors. They wanted a safe space to operate. The city didn't want chaos on sidewalks and streets. And so he came up with this ingenious solution, which was, let's take this public space indoors. Let's set up stalls. Let's have a system for permitting and renting, but make it affordable for your normal vendor to have a space and sell their products to a clientele that clearly demanded those products. And that's the origin story for those public markets. They still exist today, and they're operated by the New York City Economic Development Corporation. So that was my last job. I was there for a little over a year.
Good. Chuck, what are you seeking the DSA endorsement?
I'm not, and for one big reason, I'm not a member of the Queens DSA. I'm not a member of the New York City DSA. All that said, I believe that there is policy alignment, let's call it, especially what we saw with now Mayor Mamdani, but candidate Mamdani's positions. DSA was fighting hard on affordability. They identified the problem. It's affordability. Working families are being squeezed out of the city. And so, in terms of the things that I want to fight for in my campaign, look, universal child care, get rid of these premiums and copays and deductibles and increase in prescription drug prices. We should have single payer universal health care. That's what I want to fight for. And I think DSA believes in that. Things like universal child care. We have 3K, 4K. Let's take care of younger kids. And by the way, let's also expand such programs across the country. We can afford it. So things like that, fighting for affordability for working families, whether it's New York City or across the country. I believe there's policy alignment with the Democratic Socialists of America. But no, I myself am not a member, and so I'm not seeking their endorsement.
Chuck, I have a question. Some may make the argument that Congressmember Meng, who has been in office a good amount of time, served in the state assembly prior. I don't know what, let's say hypothetically, you win a congressional seat. I don't know what vote you'll take that she didn't take, vice versa, right? Some may make the argument that you are actually helping Trump. In other words, if you're running against another Democrat, that Democrat, when it comes to really the only avenue to opposition to Trump is Congress, right? If the Dems don't take Congress, then, right, it makes life, it's already making life extremely difficult. The fact that he, right, runs, Republicans have the majority in the Senate and the Congress, right? You have Minority Leader Jeffries working and raising money and pouring resources into taking a majority. Now, if you're essentially running against an incumbent of the Democratic Party, they have to spend time, resources, beating back someone who may differ in one vote or maybe two votes or maybe three votes or maybe differ on one issue, Gaza, or I don't know. What do you speak to that? Because some people will say, well, if you're fighting people within your own
That's a
party,
great question. Yeah. I mean, I
making
get it.
things
Look,
harder,
we
you're
need to
actually
take back the
helping Trump.
Congress. Yeah.
But you're helping Trump because Congressmember Meng is going to have to run a race now, raise money, spend money.
Look, I've heard the argument. Yeah. And
Between
look,
the two
I
of
get it.
you
Look,
is maybe
the
one
bigger
vote, one
fight are the
issue.
Republicans and the people who actually are supporting the murder that's happening in our streets. And Trump is unleashing terror in our communities, his administration, and the Republican Party that backs him. 100% agree. We need to take back Congress and take back the White House.
And I want to end with this. I'll let you take the floor.
Yeah.
What isn't she doing? What isn't Congressmember Meng not doing? What is she not doing that warrants a primary?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Let
me answer that. That's the right question because every election is a choice, right? And so what exactly is a choice? What's the difference between a Chuck Park or a Congressmember Meng who's been there 12 years, who has some
and what's broken, right?
Here's one thing I'll say. In June of 2025, when these raids were beginning in New York City, in LA, and Chicago, Congressmember Meng signed on to a resolution that expressed gratitude to ICE for protecting our homeland and called for more state and local law enforcement coordination with ICE. This is a resolution that was from June 2025. Don't take my word for it. Look it up. And I know why she signed it. Here's why she signed it. There was a horrific attack against a synagogue in Boulder, a firebombing. And there were two resolutions introduced right after that anti-Semitic firebombing. One resolution, I'll call a clean resolution, denounced anti-Semitism, denounced the attacks, and called for the safety and protection of all Jewish people in this country. That was a good, strong resolution that I absolutely support. There's a second resolution introduced by Republicans that said, hey, yeah, this anti-Semitic thing happened. But by the way, thank you, ICE. Thank you, ICE. Keep coming into our communities. We need to work with ICE. And guess what? Congressmember Meng signed on to that second resolution. Even Jewish Democratic members of Congress did not sign on to that second resolution. Dan Goldman saw that second resolution and said, hey, I'm a Jewish Democratic member of Congress. I will not sign that because it has naked, blatant language that's calling for ICE cooperation or cooperation with ICE. And that is unacceptable to me as a representative from New York City. Representative Meng signed on to that resolution. I don't know why she did, but I believe it is fundamentally disqualifying that if you are a representative for the beating heart of immigrant New York City, which in fact is the beating heart of immigrant America, that you are signing on to a document, a legal document that calls for more cooperation with these people who are beating us, tasing us, pepper spraying us, and literally shooting our people in the streets. So I think that is one thing that disqualifies her. And broadly than that, more broadly than one vote on one resolution, I believe that it's not enough to just be a Democrat. I don't believe just having a D next to your name makes you the builder and the fighter that we need for working families. I believe that once upon a time, the Democratic Party was a party of builders and fighters. I'm going back 100 years to FDR and the New Deal. We're talking about LBJ and Great Society. It was Democrats that created Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act. We fought for civil rights, voting rights, immigrant rights, the right to choose, the right to marry who we want, the right to be who we are. I believe that we gave up the fight in 2010. The last expansion of our last major expansion of our social safety net was the Affordable Care Act under President Obama. You know this well, Roberto. And that same year in 2010, the Supreme Court ruled on Citizens United. They said that corporations are people, and that unleashed a flood of corporate money into our political system. I believe there is a straight line between 2010, the unleashing of corporate money, to 2026, and our inability over the last 16 years to advance this life of basic dignity, to expand our social safety net in this country. And that's not just Republicans who aren't fighting to expand that social safety net and that life of basic dignity. It's establishment Democrats. It's people like my opponent who have taken that corporate money. Again, don't take my word for it. Everyone can Google the donor list. You'll see on there Pfizer, Bristol Myers, the big pharmaceutical companies that don't want single payer universal healthcare. You'll see on there the American Hospital Corporation, the service providers, the hospital corporations that don't want universal healthcare. You'll also see on that donor list Con Edison. You'll see on that donor list Raytheon and Lockheed Martin, the weapons makers who don't want an end to endless wars. And so I believe that in 2010, that unleashing of this unlimited corporate money and corporate, that contribution, those contributions infiltrating all aspects of our politics have prevented progress in what used to be the Democrats' primary fight, which was to build a life of basic dignity for everyone in this country. And I think that my opponent is part of the establishment that is fundamentally wrong.
I have a question for you. How about good old-fashioned dialogue? Prior to you running, did you approach Congressmember Meng, who I've found to be reasonable? And I know her. I mean, I've never had, at least personally. My question to you is, have you ever tried to have this conversation with her prior to you running, right? Did you say, let me reach out to my representative and ask or voice this concern I have with this resolution, with corporate donors, et cetera, et cetera? Did you ever try to have a sit down with her or communicate your sort of displeasure with her?
Yeah. So let me say, first of all, when she won in 2012, that was a high watermark for Asian American political power and our representation. It was a powerful moment for our community in New York because at that moment, she was the first Asian American elected to Congress from our state, even though Asian immigrants have been here for more than a century, 150 years. And so that was a breaking of a bamboo ceiling for us. It was a proud moment for so many of us. And I've canvassed for Congresswoman. I've met her on the street at poll sites. So I have met with her. And in terms of meeting this moment, she's now been in that office for 12 going on 13 years. In terms of meeting this moment we're in, and look, let's not mince words. These aren't normal times. These aren't times for a nice, reasonable person to be writing letters. These are times to be marching. These are times to be protesting. These are times to be fighting back in every way that is available to each of us. And that's different for each of us. But it's a moment to fight. I do not believe that my opponent is meeting this moment. I don't believe she has the fight in her. And in fact, I'll give you a very specific example. Within the borders of this district, there's a public school, PS 89 in Elmhurst, Queens. There was a young girl named Daida. She was a second grader at PS 89. She and her mom were grabbed at 26 Federal Plaza in August and swiftly detained, sent to Texas, and deported. They destroyed that dream in an instant. And guess what? After that happened, Roberto, every single elected official appropriately screamed and shouted about it. Your local city council member, your state assembly member, Governor Hochul. AOC led a letter demanding answers on where is this child, Daida, and where is her mother? What are we doing? Why are we terrorizing residents of Queens? To this day, there is one elected leader who has not said a word that I have seen about this case of this little girl, and that is the actual Congress member that represents that school. I believe that that shows a basic, like, you know, she's out of touch with what's happening in the streets. Like, I don't know if she feels this as personally as you and I do. You know, this is not normal times for nice, reasonable people, as you described her. This is times, these are times for people who are going to stand up and stand up forcefully. I believe that's the energy. And it's not just people who want to stand up and fight, man. You know this, and I know this. I do drop off at my school, and there are parents who are scared. They're scared to walk the 5 blocks to drop off their kid at their school because they're afraid someone's going to snatch them. They're afraid to go to their job as a house cleaner or as a cashier or as whatever it is. They're really scared, and they need to know that their leaders are standing with them. And I think that it has been disqualifying how little and how quiet my opponent has been on the issue of this terror that has been unleashed in our communities. And it's changing. I think she has since all of a sudden been saying more in the last few days and weeks. But I mean, I think it's been documented where she stands on this issue. But even she, I guess, sees polls and responds to thousands of calls I'm sure that she has received.
Chuck, but in that vein, right? He has 12 years in Congress. My understanding, she was vice chair of the DNC or the Democratic Party. That's a lot of seniority.
Yeah.
A lot of experience. You come in, hypothetically, let's say you won. You come in as, you know, I don't want to minimize the importance of winning a congressional seat. You come in as a backbencher. No seniority, right? Don't you have to figure out how the halls of Congress work?
Hey, let me turn this around. What has that seniority gotten you? Can you name a major legislative or capital achievement that has unlocked for our communities?
I know, Chuck, but let's be real. It also, you have to work within a body. You know, we've heard Green New Deal. We've heard a lot of things come out and a lot of ideas that die on the vine because you have to work in consensus. Right? It's just a reality. I don't care how many votes you get locally. You could win by 80, 90%, never. And until you're up in the ranks or you have a relevant committee in a majority, you have to be a team player. It's just the way it works, right? And everyone. So my question to you is, again, going back to how is this helpful for the larger party and to beat back Trump thing when this guy is out of his mind? I mean, Greenland, and every day it gets worse.
I agree. Every day it does get worse. So let me double down on that. I'll co-sign. It's every day I wake up.
I want to hear this. What this is. I want to hear what.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll be honest. Yeah, I agree. She's acquired some seniority. She's on the appropriations committee, and my first question will be to throw right back at you. With that power, with a title, what does that title mean if you're not delivering for your actual people? Delivering for the working families of Queens. What does the title mean? What does it mean to be have seniority in the Democratic caucus if you're not delivering for actual people? I don't care what title you got. If you're a backbencher or the chair of the appropriations committee, that means nothing to me. If families are struggling to pay the bills, if your grocery prices and your pharmaceutical, your medication prices are going up, and like they're literally disappearing us and shooting us. What does it mean to have a title? And you say that you got to work in a box. And I agree. There's a lot of coalition building that happens and a lot of working with people who are in very different political situations, who are still Democrats, who share some basic values, but maybe they're in West Virginia. Maybe they're in the Midwest and their constituencies have different views on different issues. What I'll say is this: that box is not the only place that you have to play. And in fact, I think it's less important to be in that box and work behind those closed doors than to be outside mobilizing real life human beings in the real world. And the most recent, last 3 days, 2 days are the best example of this. Up until last week, Senate Democratic leadership and House Democratic leadership could not be caught dead talking about ICE funding, DHS funding. The word abolition and abolish ICE would never be seen in any of their tweets or letters or statements. And just in the span of less than 1 week, with what we have seen from Liam Ramos, the 5-year-old, to the murder of this hero, Alex Preddy, this VA nurse, we have seen the power of normal human beings unleashed to bring incredible pressure on both Democrats and Republicans. And so now all of a sudden you have a Senate minority leader being willing to vote no and instructing his caucus to vote no. You have a House minority leader willing to vote no and allowing his members to vote their conscience on those bills. That wasn't possible a week ago. And guess what? It didn't become possible because they had some meeting between senior Dems within the closed doors of a caucus. That happened because normal people are fed up. They're angry. They want people who are going to act, who are going to do things. And so those people, normal people like you and me, wrote emails, we called again, we marched in the streets. That's what moved leadership on a huge policy issue. This is billions of dollars for this agency that's terrorizing us, right? This isn't a performative thing. It actually changed the mobilization of billions and will cause, potentially a noble fight in shutting down the government to beat back this agency. So that's an example I'll give you where, to answer your question, that it's not about a title, vice chair of this, member of that committee, if you're not delivering. And in fact, more than being within the caucus and having these conversations behind closed doors, yes, I agree that's important. But more than that, what's important is channeling the energy of the people, real life people, man, who want to fight.
Were you in Minneapolis? Were you in Minneapolis? Did you go to Minneapolis for March protest?
I have not gone to Minneapolis, but I've been to Union Square. I've been to Forest Hills. I've been in mutual aid doing food pantries in Elmhurst, back-to-back weekends. I'm pulling weeds in Casena Park with Casena Energy. Shout out to Casena Synergy. Shout out to Leona Chin there. I'm in whistle packing kits in 10 different church basements. So I'm fighting every way I can.
How much money have you raised? Let's talk about the apparatus.
Well, I want to finish that. I mean, I want to, on that same exact point, I have seen my opponent at zero of those things. I don't think I've seen her at a single rally, a single protest, a candlelight vigil. I hope she shows up. I hope she does. I haven't seen her at a single mutual aid food pantry or handing out whistles. And so I hope using the power that she still has and the platform that she still has, that she will show up and fight for us. You just asked another question, which is about, sorry, you were asking fundraising totals?
Yeah, how much money have you raised? Because this is, you're 12, 13-year incumbent. You need resources,
Yeah, totally.
Rhetoric is great, but you need to run a race, right? You need to pay staff. You need to, get your message out. So what are we talking about? How much have you raised?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, you'll see it in filing soon. Look, I will launch November 17th. By the end of the year, I think I circled in on about 150K. And for me, as a nobody who is taking, outsider, yeah, I've worked in public service, but never in politics before. That's a lot of money to me. Now I understand a congressional race, man, that's no joke. And I see the sticker price on a typical congressional race anywhere in the country, but in New York City, yeah, it's expensive. This is what I'll say. I am proud of what I've been able to raise for one big reason. It's coming only, sole sourced, only 100% from real human beings. I'm not taking a penny from any corporate PAC. I'm not taking a penny from any lobbyist. I'm not taking a penny from APAC or any other foreign interest PAC. And let me dive into that for 1 second. I'm a Korean. I would never take 6 figures from the South Korea Friendship PAC because I think that creates a basic conflict of interest. Just like taking money from pharmaceutical companies or defense contractors creates a conflict of interest. So I'm not taking any of that money. And that will put me at a money disadvantage. I think it puts me at a moral advantage, but it puts me at a money disadvantage. With all that said, I'm proud of what I've raised so far. I hope to keep raising based on a lot of the support I've been getting as I travel around the district. You know, these are communities I know well, that I love, that I grew up playing arcades in. I worked at my parents' shop in Jackson Heights. I used to go to church in Parsons Boulevard in Flushing. And so it's exciting revisiting these moments in my life and, reintroducing myself to these communities. And I hope it continues the ball rolling. But look, I get it. I'm not gonna win the money game. I'm sure of that at this point. But that's because of the campaign I'm running and the types of money that I will not accept.
Chuck, who's running your field?
I just filled out my team. She's actually a superstar. Her name's Tiffany Chen Kumar. She's from Hell's Kitchen, but she's Chinese American, so she hung out in downtown Flushing, just like a lot of us Asian Americans did. She herself won a city council seat up in Ithaca. She has also run field campaigns upstate for congressional candidates. She's smart. She's passionate. She knows these streets. And I just brought her on, so I'm super excited. And she's running the campaign, and obviously this is going to be a ground game, right? I'm not going to be dumping.
She's both your field and campaign manager?
No, I have a separate campaign manager, but I wanted to say, I'll tell you, I want to finish the point about field. Look, I want to absolutely prioritize the ground game. I want to knock on at least 50,000, 60,000 doors, maybe multiple times. I don't want this to be radio ads and TV ads and newspaper ads. You know, I'll do that if I find some money on the street. But I want to meet people at their doors, meet people at street fairs, meet people at town halls. I want to do what my opponent is not doing, which is showing up in the real world and making myself available all the time to meet anybody. Agree with me, disagree with me. I am available to meet anybody. And so field is absolutely going to be the primary avenue through which I run my campaign. And I'm really excited to have brought on a field director who's very experienced.
Campaign manager,
he's a good dude. His name's Tom Glinkowski. He is a expert storyteller. Look, he worked for Marvel Studios. He worked for Netflix. He comes from the world of film and TV. There was a big strike in a few years ago. A lot of that work dried up, and it's actually really sad to see that industry has never recovered from that, even after the strike ended. So he brought his talents to the world of politics. He ran a campaign for a great city council candidate, this guy named Ben Chu, who ran against Vicky Palladino. Now, I'm not sure if you know those names. Vicky Palladino is notorious. I believe she represents some of the worst instincts of the xenophobic, hateful instincts of some people. But he ran against her. He ran a tough race against an incumbent city council member, ran a good race, ultimately didn't turn out the way he wanted. But that's what Tom did. And he's my campaign manager.
Any other consultants you have on board?
I am bringing on real life human beings. I know there's an entire I'll call it political consulting industrial complex in New York, but across the country. I believe these are skilled people. A lot of them are passionate, and some of them are not in it with their whole heart. There's retainers and there's fees and there's, overcharging for this, overcharging for that. I wanted people who have fresh ideas. In fact, I'm prioritizing hiring people who aren't fully enmeshed in politics, but are actually fully enmeshed in like what I call lowercase p politics, local organizing. Maybe you even run a board game night. Maybe you run your local like school, like PTA, whatever. Like that's the people I want to bring in. People who actually care about their local communities, lowercase politics. But I'm trying to shy away from uppercase P politics, which is, whatever, XYZ strategies or ABC consulting, Acme. I'm using fake names, obviously. Acme Public Affairs, just because, you know, I'm not looking for mashed potatoes. I'm looking for spice. I'm looking for something that'll actually be authentic to me, that will trigger a reaction based on how I really feel about some issues. That maybe is too spicy for some people, but other people will be like, you know what, I like that. I never tasted that before, but I love it. You know, I'm not looking for some mashed potatoes on a plate. So I'm shying away from consultants. I have many friends who are in the industry, actually very skilled, qualified, experienced friends who actually can bring the spice. But I'm trying not to. I'm trying to bring in fresh thinking and outsiders as much as possible.
Chuck, have you had any conversations with the Queens Democratic Party about your run?
Look, I have. So I'll be completely transparent. My dad was, I think he's a district leader in Flushing. He mobilized massive voter registration among Koreans in the 90s and early 2000s, to the extent that Korean is now one of the few official languages that you see on ballots. You might have wondered why it's like Spanish, Chinese, Bengali, and Korean, even though there aren't that many Koreans in New York. It's because he mobilized a huge movement to register voters and reply to the census. That's my dad. And because of that, he was able to build and organize relationships with a lot of you know, the let's call it the political establishment in Queens and New York City. And so he's a district leader. I mentioned that to say that I've met Greg Meeks before my campaign, and I've tried to do some outreach. I'm waiting for a call back, but I'd be happy to meet with anybody who believes in the same values and the same priorities that I do. You know, we got to defend Queens against this assault from Trump. And then we got to build and fight for more. We got to build and fight for working families, healthcare, childcare, pathway to citizenship. So I'm happy to meet with anybody, whether that's Chair Meeks or otherwise. I have called him and left a voicemail. I'm waiting for a call back. Hey, if you have his ear, let him know that I'm happy to sit down for a coffee or a bagel or whatever.
Chuck, thank you for your time, man. Any parting words, anything you want to add before we wrap?
No, I mean, Roberto, yo, thanks so much. I appreciate you reaching out. I appreciate you bringing real talk. You know, I'm always happy, as I mentioned to you, make myself available. I believe that this is a moment of crazy juxtaposition, man. Nationally, our country is on fire. It's real, and it's scary, and it's anxiety inducing. It's easy to like just scream into the air sometimes. At the same time that our country seems like it's on fire, I think New York City is like the last bastion of hope. Man, we got some fire here. We have some electricity here, especially with this new mayor and what he has unleashed in terms of energy, excitement, and call it even optimism for what's possible in this city and this country. And so we got both of those things happening at the same time. I'm so excited to be in this race because I want to capture that optimism. I want to channel some of that anxiety and turn it into optimism that we can do something. So I appreciate you giving me the time to talk about that a little bit. I'll be back on whenever you want.
Thanks, Chuck. All the best. Good luck to you.
Yeah.
And we'll see what the outcome is, man. But you
yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm gonna win it.
have a lot of passion.
So have me back on after I win the primary. All right. Help me out with the general.
All right, my friend. Stay warm, stay cool, and be careful out there.
Yeah, you too. Be well.